Hi everyone, welcome to THT, and today we are going to talk about week 6 of Planetary Qualifiers. So this video is sponsored by Card Market, the biggest marketplace to buy and sell cards in Europe. So this is basically what we have as far as PQ winners for this 6th week of Planetary Qualifiers. You can see it's very meta. We got the two best decks, the decks that have performed the most in this PQ season, Kira and Sabine neck to neck with 3 PQs each, and then the other very popular meta leader, Han 2, Vader 4, Han 1, Quinlan, and Rey, and Boba 4 taking a PQ win. And you can see that this week Boba 4 is really going to be the outlier of this week. Really, the leaders that we were not expecting doing so well did very well, and this is getting confirmed here in the overall week 6 PQ breakdown. We see Boba 4 here with 5 PQ top 8 appearance, which is it's the highest it's ever been. And there's a very easy explanation for this that we'll talk about it later. For the rest of the breakdown, it's pretty much what you would expect. Akira has to be neck to neck, and then we see Quinlan, Han 1, Vader 4, Han 2, Anakin, and Palp 1 did very well this week as well. And Piet also did very well with 4 PQ appearance. And we also seeing basically Quinlan reappearing. I think people started forgetting a little bit about Quinlan, and then Quinlan just automatically re-emerged. A leader that hasn't done very well this week is Rey, with only 3 top 8 Rey Green, which has been considered to be one of the best deck in the game by many people, and only making it only 3 top 8 appearance this week, which is definitely a bit surprising. Then as far as the overall breakdown, as you can see, Kira stays on top as far as the winner is concerned, and then when you look at the overall PQ appearance, it's very neck to neck between Kira and Sabine, and then the rest of the meta falls up. So, first deck I want to talk about is obviously the new Boba 4 Data Vault, which we talked about last week. So, a lot of people have been telling me, hey Thork, you basically spent the entire preseason and even during the season saying that Boba 4 was terrible, and now that Boba 4 is making results, you look like an idiot. Well, I do admit whenever I'm wrong about something, and I actually made an entire video series about it where I go back into my previous evaluations, and actually looking forward to show you guys the one from Jump to Light Speed, which is going to be very spicy. But this is not one of those times. I've never said that Boba 4 as a leader was bad. I just said repeatedly that Boba Yellow was a bad deck, and I said it over and over again. And it's not so much that he's bad, it's just that he's overplayed, meaning that it sees far more play than it produces results. And I think it's been proven many times that this deck is not very good. But there's a big difference. It's not a Boba Green, it's not a Boba Yellow that is performing in those tournaments. It's not. If you look at all the different PQ's results, every single performance is made by a Boba Data Vault and not by Boba Yellow. And Boba Data Vault is far better than Boba Yellow, and it's not even close. And I'm actually one of the first person, at least that I know of, who actually put forward this deck, because I published this deck on the Enigma Discord. The Enigma Discord, and I'll show you in a minute. And that was before Boba Data Vault actually does its first results. So not only do I not consider Boba to be a bad leader, I actually build a deck around it, and this deck ended up being the one that actually performs in events. So I was actually very right on that very specific instance, even though I dare to say that I'm wrong a lot of time. Whenever you talk about a lot of things, you obviously always take the chance of being wrong, and I'm wrong on a regular basis, but this was not one of those times. Boba Green is, I've been saying it before and I say it again, is a far better deck than Boba Yellow. It's a deck that does a much better job at leveraging the power of Boba. You get the Data Vault, get the 3 extra HP, which is very important in the aggro matchup, which is the matchup where Boba struggles the most against. The ramp is extremely powerful, allows you to ramp into your leader deploy. You get much better 5-drop in space, so you can deploy your Boba into. And icing on the cake is you also get to play Overwhelming Barrage. So this is a Boba that I think has won the Planetary Qualifier in France. So you can see this is the standard version that most people playing, running the OM series officer, with a breakdown of the two grenade strike and two it's the rest of the deck is pretty much the standard version we've been seeing over and over again, and that has been performing very well in tournament. And this is my version of the deck. So this is this is the one that Ericsson was running, who is a member of the Enigma channel, and he basically copied my version of the deck. He's changed a few things. I think he changed a few things here and there. I think he played a Bravado in the sideboard that I was not playing. I think that's pretty much the only changes that he's made as far as I know. So pretty much the same version, and that's basically the deck I've been working on for a pretty long time now, even before this deck actually started producing results in events. And so basically the main difference of my version compared to the other one, there's two major differences. The first one is that I don't run OM series battle droids because I prefer to play Death Star Stormtrooper instead. And the reason why I like doing this is because it gives me I don't think that the OM battle droid is that much better unless you are running a version that runs the invisible hand. There's no I actually prefer to have a Death Star Stormtrooper, which is gonna have an extra health, and sometimes the fact that it costs 1 is very relevant, especially if you have in your opening end a first Legion Stormtrooper and the Death Star Stormtrooper. You can open up double 1 drop opening. So I prefer the Star Stormtrooper for that reason. It gives you a better turn 1 play, which is honestly the biggest weakness of this deck. The other characteristic of my version is like instead of running... so I run the IG 2000 in sideboard, and I run as my 5-drop that is going to be welcoming Boba Fett. I run the Dornian Gunship instead of running the MT-30. And the reason for this is because Dornian Gunship is actually an idea that came up once again through the discussion on the Enigma Discord, where we were discussing about what were the best 5-drops, and someone brought to my attention that Dornian Gunship was actually better than the MT-30 for multiple reasons. So you don't get the overwhelm and the raid one and the extra attack, so it makes your barrage slightly worse, but I think what you get instead is much better. First of all, you get a 1-play ability that deals indirect damage. So even if you have no other spaceship, you're still going to be dealing at least 2 damage out of it because you're going to get the trigger from Boba Fett. So that's always good to have as much your indirect damage as possible in the Boba deck. And the second main advantage is, so it gives you some sort of immediate impact on the game. And of course, if you play more spaceship, then if you have more than 1 spaceship, that can be a significant amount of damage. But the real advantage of running the Dornian Gunship is like it's far more difficult to interact with. It only has 4 attack. That means it cannot be dealt with by Felder Dragon. That means it's more likely to survive, so you can deploy your Boba Fett on it. And it also has 6 health, which it doesn't get rid by tick down. So that's like 2 removal that sees a wide amount of play that basically don't affect Dornian Gunship. That makes it a lot easier to deploy into it and to dominate the game, especially when you play against heroism type who usually will run those kind of removals. So it's really beneficial in those kind of matchups. So yeah, I think it's a really cool deck. As I said before, I'll say it again. It's if you want to be running Boba 4 in this set, it is the way to run it. It's definitely the last kind of surprise of this meta, and it's really nice to see Boba Fett making some result. I still think the deck has some strong weaknesses, especially against aggro. I think this color combination has always struggled against aggro, generally speaking. The fact that the indirect damage can simply just be dealt on units. Sometimes you can... This is the best deck to take advantage of it because you play Grenade Strike and stuff and Daring Raid, but sometimes can be very awkward. So there's still some weak matchup for the deck. But overall, I think it's a very strong deck. And once again, if you want to be running Boba 4, I think I would rate this as a tier 2, tier 3 deck. It's definitely a deck that will struggle in some matchup, but it's definitely the best way to run Boba 4 by far. And it's showing the power of the deck here in those PQ's results. Next, I want to talk about the list of Yukino Jr., uh, who managed to win the PQ in Angers, which was the largest PQ this weekend, 127 players, which is the maximum size for PQ. So congratulations to him again for winning yet another PQ, confirming the fact that Junior is undeniably the best player in France. He just keeps winning pretty much all the PQs we've seen. So he's really doing really well in on the national level. Yeah, so talk about his version here. His version is very classic. At least the main deck is extremely classic. In the sideboard, there's a couple of juicy stuff, some Mace Windows. Even though we've seen Mace Windu being played in Quinlan, most of the time it's like a one-off in the main. And also the Hidden Sharpshooter. So Hidden Sharpshooter is a tech to deal with Kira. Kira deploys a 4/4, play Sharpshooter, you can just kill her right away for free, which is nice. Yeah. Pretty classic deck. Also quite surprised to see only 2 copies of Red 5. My opinion, Red 5 is so incredibly powerful versus Han 2. Like, basically, Red 5 is Han 2's worst nightmare. Like, it's really difficult to play around. So for me, I would always play 3 Red 5 as long as Han 2 sees a lot of play. And even, of course, it's generally just a strong card. But especially in this meta where a lot of Han 2 are being played, I think Red 5 is just incredible. So I would be curious to know what's the reason why he went down to only 2 copies in his deck. Okay, so moving on now to this juicy deck. Sorry, I completely forgot the name of the person who, but he made a top 8 performance in I think in the US with this deck, and he's running Vader for Tarkin Town, yeah, it's pretty it's different, right? I'm personally not a big fan of this version. First of all, the 25 HP base, I don't think this deck performs very well on 25 HP base because very often Vader will try to basically race. It will be all in space. Your opponent is going on the ground. If you're playing against another aggro, it's very racy matchup where you are attacking in space, he's attacking on the ground, that kind of stuff. So playing attack in town in this case puts you at a disadvantage. Also, you're not really running any pings, so it's not easy to use attack in town early in the game, unless you manage to get a Vader on your unit. The other thing I don't like is like you're missing a lot of the tempo plays, which once again can allow you to buy yourself a lot of time. Stuff like No Good to Be Dead. The shuttle is also so powerful. The ability to put a space unit and deal with enemy units at the same time is incredible. And you're also missing out on Waylay and a lot of like stuff to kind of tempo things out. So in the end, what do you gain in exchange by playing red? I think the Imperial Interceptor, even though it's not as flexible as the shuttle, as it can only deal with space and also costs 1 more. Daring Raid, Open Fire is nice, but only can deal with very small units, so not always ideal. You get yourself a nice turn 1 play with Kylo TIE Silencer, even though Vader prefers to open up double 1-drop opening. So then you get the Vader play. I guess you can play like a space unit, and then you can play Vader turn 2. And that can be powerful in some instances to have this option of going tall instead of going wide. And then you got a couple of Ruthless Raiders, which are really good against aggro, I guess. And then we got 3 copies of Count Dooku, which is a way to kind of like repurpose some of those high attack units to kill something really large. So my guess is that the Count Dooku is the main motivations behind this specific build, to play this over the yellow version. But I don't think this red version will take over. I think the yellow version seems to be better, at least on paper. But once again, I haven't played with it, so it'll be interesting to know how well Count Dooku and how important is Count Dooku for the specific build. If the owner of this list would be able to maybe explain a bit more what's going on here, that would be great. But yeah, very nice to see different versions of Vader doing well. Moving on to the list of GP Lima, who managed to do a top 8 performance. I think it was a top 2 performance. He was beaten by Sabine in the final, which is not a surprise. Palpatine's decks are always very vulnerable to Sabine. And this version here, this is basically a version of Palpatine Yellow, running a lot of like interactions on the ground, a lot of sentinels on the ground to kind of like slow down the game, even running as fast Contracted Hunter. the advantage of Contracted Hunter is a Palpatine deck is like you can ambush something, and if you survive, you can actually use the body to sacrifice it and draw a card instead of having it just die. Um, and yeah, we got to see the McClunkies. You can also McClunky your own Contracted Hunter. You can also do that. Lots of ramp here with a full package resupply, price on your head, and Super Laser Technician. Not a lot of late game. Pretty much just only one Relentless, 3 Reinforcement Walker, and 1 Pop Return. So not a lot of late game. So yeah, very interesting list. Palpatine Low is one of the most difficult deck to build in the entire game. There's just so many different builds that can work with him. So it's a very difficult deck to build properly. So this is a kind of like an additional kind of way to build it that you might be interested in dipping your toe. Next, probably the biggest surprise of this PQ weekend is a top 2 performance from Abukar Calder 512 into the PQ Seattle. So it was a small PQ, 48 players, but still a second place for a leader that we all thought was dead and buried for a long time. Grand Inquisitor did a couple of results in set 1. Notably, I remember the green version of Cthulhu was actually pretty nice. This is a classic blue version that runs everything you would expect from a Grand Inquisitor. Generally speaking, when you see a very out of the meta leader like this, kind of making a performance, it often is because the player managed to find something that other people didn't. But in this case, it's very, very much just classic textbook Grand Inquisitor. We play those early game Homeland Enforcer or Scout, and you get to untap them with the Grand Inquisitor. You get to put some really big pressure early on in the game and deal a lot of damage early on. And you got every single unit in the deck basically combines with Grand Inquisitor. You got the Vader that can be equipped on the space unit. So you got the I call it the pilot cheese, turn 1 space unit, turn 2 pilots, and hope your opponent doesn't have an answer. If he doesn't, then you can just give yourself some free wins like that. Lots of way to give shield with 3 copies of Cover the Wings. And obviously the security complex as well to give your units shield. So it's a deck that is very easy to counter. That's the reason why it hasn't been performing very well, generally speaking. Like, Tarkin Town just basically stopped this deck right away. But if you're in a meta where there's not a lot of Tarkin Town, and it's a very slow meta with a lot of data vaults, I can see this deck being pretty powerful. Because it's the kind of deck that, if you manage to take a significant amount of damage against it, then every unit becomes a threat, because every unit can be readied and then attack. So it's a deck that is really, really powerful whenever you manage to put your opponent in very low HP. Usually the problem is to get there, because there's so many ways to counter the loop of you playing a unit just attacking with Grand Inquisitor. There's just a lot of ways your opponent can interact with that. So it's nice for people who want to give a second try to Grand Inquisitor. For people who are fan of the deck and want to give a second try, I encourage you to try this out and see how that works for you. It is really, really all in on what make the Grand Inquisitor special. It really is a version of the deck that really tries to abuse the ability. It almost plays no events, almost only just units, and try to leverage as much as possible the ability. Pretty much everything is 3 attack and can just be readied for some really significant damage. So yeah, congratulations, and we'll move on to the next deck. Before that, we just want to let you know that you can get Change of Hearts on card market for less than €4. It's a legendary that sees wide amount of play, that can be played in any yellow aggressive deck in the sideboard. And it's a legendary from set 1, so I think it's worth picking up. Yeah, so that's basically all the decks that I wanted to highlight for this week PQ. So let me just take a look at the overall meta of this 6 weeks of PQ. As you can see, compared to the previous week, pretty much all the meta decks are going up in percentage where compared to the week before. Basically, all those 5 decks here basically went up all those 4 decks here went up in percentage. We see basically Quinlan reclaiming its place at the 3rd highest performing deck, and we saw basically Raid of the Vault just going down compared to last week. and we've seen also Palpatine yellow squeezing himself into this picture here as being a deck that is currently performing. So what can I say? This is, as I said, the meta is just not changing much. As I said, we are pretty much at the moment where the meta is very, very stable. The latest meta deck that we've seen appearing is this is the Boba 4 Dead Vault, and it's been a few weeks now since we've seen this deck performing. So the meta is pretty stable, and as I said before, and I say it again, it's a very, very nice meta. I think as we move on to the Legend of the Force meta, where Legend of the Force is going to be, we have 1 more month of Jump to Lightspeed. The best advice I can give you guys is enjoy Legend of the Force, and enjoy the new spoiler, enjoy playing with them, but don't forget about the playing Jump to Lightspeed. Don't forget to practice for your showdowns and PQs that are left over for the rest of the months, and enjoy it while it lasts, because it's not every day it's not every set that you get such a great meta. So enjoy it while it lasts, because there's no guarantee that the Legend of the Force meta is going to be better than this one. So thank you so much for following that video, and I'll see you next time.